young voting or spying and reformulating Coca-Cola. Welcome to Mark and Pete, two blokes with half an opinion. Now, here's our first thought for today.
Baby ballot. If you are someone who is sweet 16, beware the world can be bonkers and bitter. Now even younger folk may also want the vote so they can consult their babysitter. Yes, it does seem that the voting age is getting younger and younger. Yes, in fact, the Labour Party has decided that the next general election, 16-year-olds will be able to vote. Well, this is controversial. Many people feel that people of the age of 16 still don't have the life skills to make the right type of voting choice. Mr. Pete, I ask you, do you think this is a good idea, or maybe you have some concerns?
Yes, I do have some concerns, Mr. Mark, because now, if you remember back to when you were 16 at the turn of the 15th
that was about 100 years ago, yes.
Yeah, we, at that time, I'm not sure that you reached the full level of, obviously, great maturity they have these days. And in fact,
Still waiting.
This is quite a common mode of development. People just aren't mature at the age of 16. Also, they don't have that much experience. So various things they're not allowed to do in law. They can't go out and buy a pint in the pub, but they might be able to choose the next Prime Minister. Doesn't sort of sit well. And the other thing is, just personally, I had been hoping that they'd raise the voting age, because I think the current people voting, even at 18, you don't really have enough maturity or life experience, just generally speaking, to make that vote. And we see, though thankfully, many don't actually vote. The lowest turnout is the younger the age. So that brings me to my final point, is that although I have disquiet, it may not be a big issue because they simply won't turn out.
Well, that is one concern. I guess they might still have to do their homework, but never mind.
Yes.
The fact is that maybe politicians should be thinking about doing their homework a little bit more. Why? Well, ultimately, the vast majority of 16-year-olds probably wouldn't have those life skills. For example, they may not have held a job. They may never have to have done a tax return. They may never have actually purchased a property. They may still, of course, have never driven a vehicle. We could keep on going. So the concerns by many is that really this is just a move by the Labour Party to just increase the potential voting quota. And studies have shown that at the moment, as we speak, that it seems like a younger audience were more likely to vote for Labour. Well, will that really still be the case in 4 years' time, should Keir Starmer actually manage to last that long? Now, there's some other points of concern, because I agree that this isn't the first time that the lowering age decisions have been debated. But the last time that it was actually lowered was really back in 1969, when it went from 21 years of age to 18, which is where it is at the moment. Now, I suppose the other thing to note as well is that if that were the case, Mr. Pete, you'd have to say that if you could vote, surely then you should also be able to stand in Parliament at the age of 16.
Well, I think that that is a crucial issue, that if you can vote, why can't you be the person who's voted for? There's a logical disconnect there. Yes, you're quite right. So does that mean you then allow people to stand up for Parliament at 16?
Yes.
I guess logically you do. I'm hoping that that it's snapped back to an older age soon enough. I mean, at this point, we like in the show occasionally to put in a bit of biblical wisdom. And I got a verse from Job. There were several verses I could have chosen, but this is Job 12, verse 12 from the Old Testament. The context being that Job is being given advice by some very wise friends. You may have heard the phrase Job's comforters. They're not wise at all.
Yes.
And he replies back to them then. So, he's going to trust God. And you should instead listen to people who've spent their time trusting God. And he says, in Job 12 verse 12, wisdom is with aged men, and with length of days understanding. And I think he encapsulates the issue. We're not saying that at 16, here in Mark and Pete, we're not saying that at age 16 you're a bad person. It's just that you're not an experienced person, and therefore you
Correct.
haven't developed the wisdom that you need in order to make sort of decision like voting for which party is going to be in power, and then therefore who's going to lead the nation.
Well, correct. Now, I'm going to cast everybody's minds back to the past. When I was at school,
Yes.
they actually had quite an advanced idea. This is before I even met Mr. Pete. And that was that they did a simulation in 1979. Yes, the famous election in the United Kingdom when Margaret Thatcher won. What the school decided to do was to do a simulated election where some of the candidates were children and they went through the whole process. The point being was part of education. It was the idea to understand the issues of the day, really understand the processes and the techniques of what politicians typically would do. Now, ironically, the actual vote simulated pretty much what actually eventually happened. As we know, the Conservatives did win the 1979 election. But my point is this, is that those people who were young, basically under the age of 18, in fact, even at the time, they were even under the age of 16. But the point was, it was really to get you to learn. Now, that was fine, but you still knew that you had gaps, even as a child, in your understanding of how life really works. If you've never really held a job or been in a situation where you've fought for your country or that you've even done anything that is of really significance where you can contribute to society, not just financially, but others, you know you really are lacking in a lot of these life skills. Now, I will say, I think I'm very much encouraged by the idea of nurturing children into the idea of understanding the importance of politics, because I think you made a point earlier that maybe a lot of younger people may not take interest, and certainly at the last election a lot of young people as well as older people didn't bother voting. It was a very low turnout, and I think that when you do have a vote, it's a really important decision. It changes the course of a nation, as we've seen. So to me, I think that, yes, lowering it from 18 down to 16 is a bad idea. And I think in many ways you can make the argument of bringing it back up to 21, which for some I know will be controversial. But to me, it really comes down to life choices. And that's what I think that really gives a much more discerning vote. That's where I think that the vast majority of the public would be. But anyway, let's move on to the next subject.
Yeah.
This one is a lot more serious because it does certainly, definitely affect our national security, the silent enemy. It is said that walls have ears to listen in complete obscurity. But if they are stone deaf, cracks appears in your security.
Yeah.
Well, it seems there's a lot of question marks over the United Kingdom's national security. Yet the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has pledged to meet the NATO target of spending 5% of the UK's GDP on national security all the way through to and up to by 2035. Well, that's all very well, but there are some concerns. Why? MI5, MI6 has already said that they're losing a lot of secret agents. They're not paying them enough, the conditions are poor, and no surprise, it's a challenge to nurture people in. Mr. Pete, I ask you, do you think that we are in a crisis with our national security, with issues, especially when we've seen recently that there has been data breaches, particularly related to special forces?
Now, by its nature being secret, it's difficult to comment too accurately, I would say, on the secret services. But if you're not paying them enough, then you've got the danger of recruitment and retention, and also loyalty. So you don't want people spying for the other side, and that's an issue that they've been having. There seem to be spies everywhere at the moment. Being paid less, there being security breaches, and then the conditions not being good, you've basically got a problem with their morale It's been shaken but not stirred, you might say, if you were
Oh,
being
yes.
James Bondish about it. But it's it's an issue because, and I now I believe this is the case. This is from my observation. I don't have you don't have detailed data to back this up, but see what you think. I think it's an issue because of a change in strategy, and I think the strategy is important here. There's been a worry and an emphasis on data breaches and also analysing data in social media, online, in other words, digital communications, and a move away from old style spying and watching people. And
Yeah.
although it is important to get a grip on social media, information being shared around on the internet is vital to follow. You need also the on the ground stuff because, let's face it, Twitter doesn't actually blow people up. Even AI can't actually blow people up these days. It's people who do it. You need people on the ground to catch the bad people, to put it simply. And so I think that this change in emphasis has grown and taken over, and therefore the allowance, the budget, isn't big enough to pay the staff. I think that's just a summary of where I see that it's been going.
Yes, and what's interesting is that many other nations have been pouring a lot of money into defense spending. So this definitely fits
Yeah,
within the defense arena.
sure.
And to your point, it's not just about the people on the ground, the feet on the street. It's also about cybersecurity, the digital world, the virtual world. But either way, the principle of investment in being able to ensure that either Russians or Chinese and or anyone else who have, without any doubt, and it has been proven, have certainly infiltrated not just United
Yeah.
Kingdom, but European and indeed even American systems. What's interesting is that Poland has invested a dramatic amount of money. At one point in 2014, they spent 1.86% on defense spending, and they've increased that to 4.07. So you
Yes.
can see there's already a ramp up there. Now, interestingly, the United States has been pretty much around a 3.5%. So that may or may not waver a little bit. Germany has increased it from 1.16 back in 2014 to 2.1, but I think they've already made a commitment to start to go further. The Netherlands has been at 1.12 and has now more than doubled that to over 2. And France, interestingly, has sort of wavered a little bit, or just under the 2% to just over the 2%. But the fact is that, isn't it interesting that the world that we now in, really, where it comes to security, is no longer in the traditional ways, as you said, about the sort of the James Bond methods of techniques of securing your world, because we're now so reliant on the digital world.
Yes.
But if you don't have those skills and you can't attract those people in a world where espionage can be extremely dangerous, then that really does leave you a bit exposed.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what do
I
you
mean, I
think is
agree.
what is the solution here? It's not
Well,
just
the
about
solution
chucking
is
money at it, surely.
well. I think some money, perhaps more money, needs to be allocated. But yes, it's a change in emphasis. It's a tightening of the strategy. I mentioned what I perceived as too much of an emphasis with the online strategy, and that's been. I've taken this from comments people who were ex employees at GCHQ in Britain. I won't say their names, obviously, but they've noted this shift. I just think it's a shift too far because we've noted that although you need to monitor the digital world, real life monitoring is also needed. The only way is for people to wake up.
Yes.
Just a quote from the Bible, 1 Peter 5 verse 8: "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion." Our adversaries are out to get us by that necessity, and it's a dangerous world. We have enemies. A nation that's asleep to the threat is easy prey, like you'd be easy prey to a lion, and we need to wake up. And the only way to wake up is, well, we've got our podcast here, which obviously it has its listenership, but if if there are changes to be made, your elected representatives need to know that you, gentle listener, are angry about this. So if you do live in Britain, or you know someone who lives in Britain, let them know. Look, sort yourself out. I'm angry about this. I'm disturbed.
Yes.
We are not trusting you because you're not concentrating on our security, and we vote for you. It's not just Britain. I recognise that. That's where we're based, but other countries need to step up their game as well. You've noted a few. In Britain, we're asleep at the moment. We need to wake up.
Well, indeed. In fact, the Liberal Democrat defence spokesperson, who's Helen Maguire, said it was absolutely right that the government matched the 5% NATO spending target, especially after the damage done by our defence, by the Conservatives, essentially. They're sort of having a bit of a jibe at the previous government. The threat of Putin's Russia, combined with the unpredictability of the Trump White House, demands a once-in-a-generation commitment. Well, I think many people would agree. Let's see how that unfolds. Let's move on to a slightly sweeter story.
Yes,
Bubble trouble.
slightly.
If you have a taste for fizzy bubbles and drinking lots of sugary colas, your teeth will have troubles which quickly doubles as they rot your gums and molars. Yes, they do. However, it does seem that, yes, we have to say that President Trump, yes, President Trump himself, the Coke-loving man himself, has said Coca-Cola has agreed to use real cane sugar in its drinks sold in the United States. Now, cola, this is the Coca-Cola brand, uses corn syrup in its products. But Trump's Health Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has voiced concerns about the ingredients and its health impacts. He has said that he has been concerned, speaking to Coca-Cola, about using real cane sugar in Coke in the United States, as well as elsewhere, and that they have agreed to maybe change the ingredients. Well, this is a revelation, isn't it? Well, Mr. Pete, what do you think about this bubble trouble?
Well, I think this is a big problem in America, that the Trump White House and RFK Jr., his health secretary, Robert Kennedy, have highlighted. They've seen that there's an over reliance on high fructose corn syrup. Fructose being that single
Yes.
molecule a type of sugar that has high uptake and also causes those pesky insulin spikes quicker. Gets taken into the body. It's bad for you. You wouldn't have it on its own, so why have it in your drinks? Now that's recognised in other countries, including Britain. In Britain, Coke has actual sugar in it. Well, but I believe it's a 50-50 mix. It has the glucose and the fructose, and it has actual sugar. Now, actual sugar, sucrose, is the glucose and fructose bonded together into one molecule. And it's that's the natural form of it. That's more healthy. I mean, you don't want to be taking too much even normal sugar. But yes, this high fructose corn syrup is associated with heart attacks, with diabetes, as I mentioned. It's not good, and other countries have already recognised it. I think Mexico also has cane sugar as well. So
Yes.
it's looking like America is catching up with the rest of the world. So and if Coke is going to change its formula, that's quite a big win for the Trump White House to try and make that move in the health sphere, and it will highlight the benefits, hopefully, of the other changes they make there. I think Robert Kennedy is doing a great job.
Well, I agree, and let's not forget, I mean, for those people way back, I think it goes to the 1980s when Coca-Cola thought it might be a good idea to actually change their ingredients. And of course, it backfired after it didn't work. We don't know the real reasons of the individual ingredients, but that did actually hit their sales. And of course, Pepsi Cola capitalized on it. Now, there are some stakeholders who have a different counter argument to this, but no surprise, and it will certainly leave a bitter taste for American corn farmers. Now, the Corn Refiners Association, yes, the CRA president and CEO John Bode said in a statement, replacing high fructose corn syrup with cane sugar would cost thousands of American food manufacturing jobs, depress farm income and boost imports for foreign sugar, all with no nutritional benefit. Well, I guess that is true to a point, but I think that the bigger picture here is surely for those people who just like taking Coca-Cola, there really has to be some concerns in a world that now has moved on about health concerns. I think we can certainly say that that's been well documented. Maybe Mr. Kennedy has a point. It may impact jobs. But then again, ironically, if the product itself is light, surely that's a benefit for everybody. And maybe more people will drink it. That's another way of looking at it, that actually you could see that it might impact the Corn Refiners Association, but it may actually sort of help with those on cane sugar.
Yeah, and I mean, it is important to note, I think we just close, I'll just say that there is a real difference between this sort of corn sugar syrup mix that they use in the high fructose version that they use in the US compared with cane sugar. I think I said earlier that the UK uses cane sugar. I'm pretty sure actually it's beet sugar, from sugar beet, but it's actual sugar, sucrose, and that's they're metabolizing different bits of the body. You have added effects against your health using this high fructose corn syrup, and it's real. So you quoted an advocate for continuing to use it, saying with no nutritional benefit. Now, that's being slippery with words. No nutritional benefit. Yeah, true. You're not getting extra nutrients or anything like that. But there is a health benefit. So he's just being slippery with his words there. So I think this is a wise decision.
Yes. Well, there you go, folks. I think you can see a common thread here that all of our subjects have been bittersweet. Well, I wonder what you think about this. So, Mr. Pete, close out. What do our listeners think about these subjects?
Yes, you need to get in touch with us. You need to make sure you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed already to Mark and Pete, what are you doing with your life? Come on, step up. Go to markandpete.com. Make sure that you are subscribed. Then you can make a comment on this. And in fact, every episode, we'd love to hear your views, and we do feature them in special comment episodes. So it's worth making your comment. We do read them, and we often use them in future episodes if we want some really bad content. I mean, if we want some great content. So that's it for this week from Mark and myself. Thanks very much for listening. Catch you next time.